There was a study about seed oils that was hidden for over 40 years on nearly 10,000 people. It's one of the most careful experiments ever run, and the results sat in a basement unpublished until the scientist who ran it died. We're going to get into why it was never published and why it was buried, but it really won't mean anything until I show you something that's even more bizarre. The fat in your body today is not the same fat that was in your parents or your grandparents in 1960. And no one's been telling you this, and no one's been asking for your permission for this to happen, but this is what has been happening. And so what I'm going to show you is not theory at all. It's from actual samples taken from real people across decades. Your body fat is not just a fuel tank. It's a living tissue built out of the fats that you've been eating. And the main fat in seed oils is called linoleic acid. And it comes from corn oil, canola oil, soy oils. In 1960, our bodies were made of about 6% of linoleic acid. Now our bodies are made of 18% of linoleic acid. That's a jump of like 200%. The physical material that your body is built from has been reformulated over this time frame. At the core cellular level, our bodies are very different than someone born in 1960. And not only that, it starts before your first bite. The linoleic acid in mother's breast milk roughly doubled across the 20th century too. And get this, soybean oil has not just increased 10% or 20%, it has increased 1,000% over this time period. So yes, there's a huge debate on seed oils. Some group will say, well, they're not bad for you. We haven't done the studies. Another group will tell you they're inflammatory, they're very bad. Well, my question today is a little bit different. What happens when these seed oils accumulate in our fat cells as well as in our cellular membranes? And there's mixed research on this. Some studies show it's not harmful. Some studies show that it is harmful. But in reality, the big problem with seed oils is when they become oxidized. So I'm talking about heating. The worst thing in the world you could do to these seed oils is heat them and reheat them. And every time you heat the oil, you create toxic byproducts, okay? These two right here. I'm not going to get into the technical names for these, but what happens, these byproducts go throughout the body, they accumulate, and they're like super glue. They start attaching to all sorts of proteins, and then they make that protein unavailable to you. Today's argument is not necessarily about the seed oils themselves. It's what happens when they accumulate in your body, and it's also what happens when you keep reheating them. And when I'm talking about oxidation, I'm not just talking about frying them. I'm talking about what happens when you burn this oil that's in your fat cell. So when you're using up your fat, you're burning the seed oils that are embedded in your fat cells, and you're creating oxidation and you're creating byproducts just from using this fat. Normally, our fat cells are supposed to be made from saturated fats, which are tough and they have more durability. But what we've done is we've slowly been replacing the saturated fat with the unstable, very fragile linoleic acid in our fat cells. And people have been telling you it's completely safe and it's not going to create any problems. Well, actually, there is research in animal studies that does show it's a major problem. It goes in the brain, it goes in the arteries, it goes into the nervous system and actually irritates the nerves. And what's really wild is we've never done any long-term safety studies on linoleic acid. Now, I want to touch on some old research, a massive piece of scientific research that was sitting in a basement for quite some time that was released in 2016. It actually had to take a death of a researcher and then his son, who then found it in some cardboard boxes to then bring it out of the basement and show what this was all about. I mean, this was decades ago. The government launched a massive experiment to prove that animal fats caused heart attacks. They took 9,500 people and forced half of them to swap out butter for vegetable oil. This is one of the largest, most rigorous diet trials in human history, and it was sitting in a basement. And why was it never published? Because it didn't come out how they wanted it to. And it was called the Minnesota Coronary Experiment. When independent researchers finally analyzed that buried data in 2016, they found the missing piece. The vegetable oil that people consume did end up lowering the cholesterol, exactly as promised. But it did not save their lives. In fact, for every 30-point drop in cholesterol, the risk of death actually went up by 22%. The Minnesota coronary experiment, meant to justify 50 years of dietary advice, completely backfired. So this is not a conspiracy theory. It's an actual documented historical fact. While billions of people were told to eat seed oils, and we've been accumulating this linoleic acid in our fat cells, our membranes, for the last 60 years. You know, we use cholesterol as a biomarker to indicate if our heart is healthy or not, or if we're going to have a heart attack. You have to realize our body makes cholesterol, but somewhere along the line, someone came up with an idea that we'll use cholesterol as the great biomarker to determine if you're going to have a heart attack or not. The Over 60 systematic review, this was in 2016, analyzed 19 different studies, tracked over 68,000 elderly individuals without statin therapy, noted a distinct U-curve where the lowest risk of death occurred when the total cholesterol was maintained, and get this, between 208 and 278 milligrams per deciliter. A lot of doctors will consider that high and they would put you on a statin. Yet the data shows that that was the lowest risk of death when your cholesterol was in those levels. There's also data to show that when your cholesterol is too low, your immune system is compromised, you're more at risk for cancer, you're more at risk of getting clots, you're more at risk of getting a stroke. And this is all because cholesterol is a fundamental structural component of all of your cellular membranes. So when it's too low, it creates problems. A little bit of seed oil now and then is probably not going to create a major problem. It's the accumulated effect over the years of building this up into our fat cells and our cellular membrane. There is a lot of data in the reheating, the deep fried foods of this oil creates these byproducts that are really toxic on just about every tissue on our body. And so these omega-6 fats are supposed to be balanced with the omega-3 fatty acids, which are anti-inflammatory. They're protective. It comes from seafood, shellfish, cod liver oil. Ideally a 1-to-1 ratio, but the average American is so lopsided that they're like 10 to 20 times heavier on this linoleic acid than they are the omega-3 fatty acid. If your environment is off, everything else struggles. It's like a fish tank. Pollute the water and the fish get sick. You could feed them the best food, you can treat every single symptom, but if the water stays toxic, nothing recovers. The body runs on 10 signals like insulin, cortisol, inflammation, sleep quality, gut function. Every one of them affects how you feel. But there is always one signal that is more broken than the rest. And until you fix that one, everything else stays stuck. I built a free 2-minute quiz that finds it for you. It tells you which one of the main signals is holding your body back right now. Click the link in the description, take the quiz, and stop guessing. Okay, there's 2 things that the average American needs to do. Stop consuming seed oils. It's going to take up to 600 days to remove this oil out of the body. At the same time, you need to replace the omega-3 fatty acids. That comes from fish oils, cod liver oil, fish, shellfish. And I think the next most important thing for you to understand is the massive benefit of omega-3 fatty acids. And for that information, you should watch this video right here.